it's used in like common sense would tell you it's used in like money. Like I said, getting exact values, things like that. I mean, I think it's pretty much self-explanatory what it's used for. Okay, now I'm going on to what is a veritable. Now, in math, we all learned what a veritable was. It was, I mean, it's a little different in programming. Veritable in math is a letter, or yeah, a letter or some kind of character that represents a number, or it represents the number that we're trying to figure out. It's a little different in programming. Programming, you actually assign a value to the letter or the word. It's not necessarily a letter, as you see here. This is just to show you the basics. It does not have to be X or Y. In fact, as I scroll down here, you'll see that the veritable name could be pretty much anything you want to make it, except for a keyword within the compiler. Or I should say IDE, like I said before. Compiler is the same thing. Compiler links everything together. Actually, there's something called a linker, so watch what I say. Basically, when everything gets put together and you get the exe, that's what the compiler does, along with the linker. Okay. Okay. For right here, what I'm basically doing is I'm storing 5 inside of the value or the letter x. Okay. So inside x equals 5, or store 5 in x. Y equals 3. Okay, so now we know we store 3 in y. Like I was saying before, it does not have to be a y or whatever. You can make it a word. So, of course, in programming, you're going to use words. You're not just going to use letters. And, in fact, most programming teachers would tell you to make it as identifiable as possible so that if other programmers are reading your code, they'll understand what it's for. Okay, so here I use the word cats. Cats equals 7. So I store 7 in the variable cats. So now if I call on that, cats equals 7. Alright. So now, like I was saying before, a variable also means to vary. Okay, so I mean, obviously, I mean it's inside the word veritable. It varies. In other words, it can change. So if I had a value 7 stored in cats, I can reassign the value, and I can put 10 in it. Okay? So now, cats no longer equals 7, it equals 10 instead of 7. Okay, so that's the whole idea of a variable. You can keep changing numbers and strings, or you can keep changing the variable. That's why it's a variable. It changes. Okay? I probably do have some misspellings in here. Please don't mind that. I'm not really a good speller. I don't really pride myself on it. But so I keep going on here. Here we have basically what would be a string variable. Okay, and this time I'm naming it name. Called it name, I should say. Inside of it, I'm using a quotation mark, which is required for any string type variable. In order to put a value inside of it, you got to use these quotes on either side of whatever you're putting in it. It's a little different for char. Char actually uses the single quote. I think that's what it's called. But it looks something like that instead. So that would be, it'd be more like this. Of course, a char only uses one letter, like I said. So you won't be able to put John in that. That wouldn't work. You get an error. That wouldn't work. Okay. Unless, of course, like I said before, you're using an array where it captures all the letters instead of just one. I'll get more into arrays later in the later videos, as if I'm the one doing them. Hopefully other programmers will join in on this and try to help others understand programming. This shouldn't have to be one person's job. We should work as a team. Mirror's gone a long way from this website, and I really appreciate this site. And others should too. Stop being so negative and actually start trying to help out. Anyway, moving on. Okay, now I just got done explaining variables. Okay, now there's a different type of variable. Like I said before, variable means it varies, it can change. Now the other type of variable that there is a constant variable. Okay, constant means it does not change, it stays the same. Well, the word constant is pretty obvious. It's constant. There does not change. It doesn't vary. Okay, so constant int cats, which I actually went a little in depth with that a little right away. So if I just took this int out, it would be pretty much like you were seeing before, except for now it has the keyword, a computer language word, constant, or C-O-N-S-T. This is how it's used in C++. And then the variable name cats. So in other words, cats equals 10 and will not change from that value. It will always equal 10. So now if I went down here and I tried to change the value of cats to 5, this would actually cause an error and is completely illegal within C++. You cannot reassign, cannot change the value of the variable once it's constant. And I'm going to show you here, I actually created a little application inside of C++ to go further into detail with this type of stuff. Alright, here we go. Alright, hopefully you guys can see this real well. I start out with explaining that C++ is an integrated development environment, just like Pascal, which is Delphi. They call it Delphi nowadays. There's Visual Basic. There's .NET 6.0. 6.0 is pretty much what I learned when I was a little younger. I think I started programming around 15. I'm now almost 30, so it's been a while. I just now started learning C++ and everything. I just got back into it. So, and mirrors is a lot of why I decided to get back into it. So I just wanted to actually learn how to build servers. This is pretty cool. Okay, as I start out here, I'm actually using the real language. As you see here, C++ uses abbreviations to represent the same thing I was just talking about. This right here, int, stands for integer. Okay, so this is the data type. Alright, and when you create your actual variable, which is this right here, you should always include an abbreviation of the data type so that you know what data type it is. It makes things a lot easier on yourself and other programmers. Okay, so this is another thing that programmers or teachers will tell you is that you should use camel humping when you declare your variables, which means your first letter in your word will always be lowercase, which is usually the data type, and then the next word, which here is whole, will start with a capital letter, and then every word after that will start with a capital letter, like number. Okay, so that's called camel humping. So it makes things more readable and understandable to other programmers if everything is uniformed. Okay, so when they see it, they'll know exactly what it is. Okay, I've created two different integer variables here. One that is initialized and one that is not. So in other words, this one doesn't hold a value yet. I just created it. This is how you would create the variable. Basically, you're telling it what data type it is, and it's creating integer is 4 bytes in memory. Okay, so it's creating 4 bytes in memory, and it's giving it a name of int whole number. Okay, so we can store 4 bytes of information inside of this variable because it's an integer. Now each of these will vary. There's different bytes. I don't know every one. I don't really need to, but each of these vary. A double becomes more memory because it has to be more precise. A bool should only be like maybe 1 or 2 bytes because it only has 2 different values, either true or false. Okay. And the next thing I have this. Okay, yeah, I was going on to. Okay, I declared another variable here. These are 2 different variables. Okay, we have an int whole number and an int whole number initialized.